Sure.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Personne Extraordinaire. Through this interview series, I'm attempting to profile people who've made an extraordinary impact in their respective fields to engage and uplift others and help them be the best versions of themselves. Today's guest holds a very special place in my heart, and I'm indeed honored to introduce to you someone whose presence in my life I cherish immensely. A very warm welcome to Mr. Arun Kapur. Mr. Arun Kapur is an educator with several decades of experience in the private as well as public education spheres. After graduating from St. Stephen's College, Delhi, he worked as a teacher and housemaster for more than a decade at the Doon School, Dehradun. In 1990, Mr. Arun Kapur became the founding headmaster of Vasant School, New Delhi. He nurtured the school to become India's leading co-educational day school. Since 2008, he has been working with the Druk Gyalpo Institute in Bhutan, a project of His Majesty, the King of Bhutan. Mr. Arun Kapur is currently the director of the institute, and he also serves on the boards of many schools, including the Doon School, Scindia School, and the Pallavan School. Mr. Arun Kapur is also the founder and chairman of Ritinjali, an NGO set up in 1995 for community development amongst marginalized communities in India. In 2001, he conceptualized and started a chain of preschools called Pallavan and also set up Pallavanjali, a school for inclusive education of diverse learners. Mr. Kapoor has contributed to multiple forums in education. Widely read and widely traveled, Mr. Arun Kapoor's understanding of children and their needs, the innovations he has introduced, and his belief that education is the best route to self actualization have added immense value to the various projects he is associated with. Mr. Kapoor, I have vivid memories of how my mother was determined to the point of almost obsessed with having me enrolled at Vasant School years ago. Though I might not have understood it then, I deeply realize now, as I have lived the last decade of my young life, literally breathing how excellence indeed is exemplified by Vasant School. You founded an institution that literally walks the talk in letter and spirit and relentlessly work towards ensuring that no one is left behind by planning for the most vulnerable, of which I was once one. And for that, and so much more, Mr. Kapoor, I owe you an immense debt of gratitude for the rest of my life. Thank you so much for being here, and a very warm welcome to you.
Well, then that was an extraordinary welcome. But I accept that because it's coming from an extraordinary person. And you might say that you have gained a lot by being at the Vasanwadi School. But please remember always that Vasanwadi School has gained a lot from people like you. We learn from you constantly. And like you said, the Vasanwadi School, founded by Arun Puri and Rekha Puri has been like the backbone in many ways that the school has developed. So I was lucky to be part of that journey that you are now also going on, and that journey changed me, made me who I am today. As much as you say that Vasant School has helped you become who you are today, so both of us are very much together on this journey. I can assure you that I'm very chronologically in years way ahead of you, but in terms of learning, I think both of us are at the same spot, constantly learning and learning to find the best sides of ourselves through interactions like this one. I was very lucky that you had sent me the video which I saw with you starting off by sharing that story of a girl that turned out to be you, and about the poems that you read out. I write poetry, by the way, so that whole collection of poems that you sent meant a lot. And how you ended at the end with the quotation by, if you can conceive it, you can achieve it. Absolutely. So I'm really thrilled to be here for this conversation with you. So let's go ahead. And I must say to you that just the fact that you have set this up this whole YouTube channel already sets you apart in a very, very nice and positive way. May you always have strength under your wings and may you fly very high.
Thank you so much, sir. You don't know how much that means to me. And I'd actually love to see some of your poetry if you can send some over sometime.
I will definitely share some with you. Definitely.
Okay, to start off, what is a fun fact about yourself? This can be any animal, food, hobby, or anything else.
Food, food, food. I love food. I used to cook a lot, and even if I say so myself, I was not bad. But I don't know what has happened in the last, let's say, 4 or 5 years. Life has just become too busy for me, and I think now that you asked me this question, I shall go tonight and cook something. I'll love food. I have a huge collection of recipe books. I read recipe books, dream about them, and I visualize them in my head, the meal coming through. So that's one thing that I read a lot. I love reading. And now I've also started listening to a lot of podcasts, constantly just. So food for thought from the podcasts and the books, and food, real food by looking and reading at recipe books and also cooking quite often.
That's a very interesting thing. I think over the last 2 to 3 years, all of us have changed, and no one can really blame you for not cooking as much. The pandemic changed us all.
Absolutely. Very much so.
So it's really rare that career paths follow a straight line from where they started to where they are today. Could you please share a little bit about your own journey? Who or what was your inspiration and some interesting experiences along the way that shaped you as a person?
Ooh, I thought this conversation was going to be about you and not about me. But I will share quickly. As a young kid, I grew up spending a lot of time with my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, and my father. And I have 5 sisters, all of whom have shaped me a lot in many, many different ways. 2 daughters who also helped me grow a lot. So, and I grew up in small towns in the eastern part of the country, in Orissa, in Bihar, in Bengal. Then I moved to Delhi for my college. As you said, I was in St. Stephen's College. I did my BA and my master's in history. And then I was going to be sitting for the civil service exams. I sat for them, did the written exams. And then something happened that changed my life completely. In an evening, I got a visit from 2 of my professors who said, "Hey, listen, there's a school called the Doon School in Dehradun." Of course, I'd heard of it. That the history teacher there has suddenly resigned and gone. Why don't you go and help them out? And I said, I don't want to be. That was not part of my dream, like you're saying, career path. School teaching was not on. But anyway, cutting a long story short, I went up there. In the interim period between the written exams and the interview for the civil service, I thought I'd go and spend some time there. And that's what I was supposed to do, go and spend 2, 3 months there. But I spent 14 years there. I just fell in love with the whole aspect of, being there, with learning from the kids. It was just delightful. So, so that kind of, these things happen because the history teacher resigned. If he hadn't resigned, I wouldn't be having this conversation with you. Dr. R.D. Singh, he was the guy. And the other thing about that was he resigned, and where did he go? He came to Bhutan. And it is because of Bhutan, in many ways, that I became a school teacher. And now here I am in Bhutan talking to you about my life. So that in so many ways, there are these karmic connections that we don't know about. We never know what's in store, what's happening, and why things are happening. So at that point in time, I had no idea that for the last 10, 11 years, Bhutan would play such an important role in my life. And I would be able to do some stuff in Bhutan. So that's it in a very short term. And I was at the Doon School for many years. Then I came to the British School in Delhi as the principal for a very, very short time. Then I was very lucky to meet with Mr. and Mrs. Puri, who were at that point in time planning to start the Vasant School. So I joined them right from the beginning. And I spent 30 years with Vasant School and learned so much from people like you. And now here I am in this nice, cold, beautiful, amazing place in Bhutan, in Paro. So that, very long journey, but very short description.
Mr. Kapoor, I think more than you, all of us at Vasant Valley were very fortunate for the turn of events that led to you being associated with us. And more importantly, the thing that I think really stands out for me is the fact that for every turn life takes, and that every person we meet, there is something to be learned that is up for grabs from that person, from that experience. It's a funny thing how life plays out.
Yeah, and the thing is that meeting people, this conversation, I know it's going to lead to many more thoughts. I love the illustration that you have behind you. The blue is one of my favorite colors, and you got Einstein on one side. So this whole impression is going to be, and I like the little symbols that you have. So small things like the illustration behind you, the wonderful smile, your great hair, your conversation, your poems. You're absolutely right. These are encounters that we have with people. Um, I think there is I spent a fair amount of time, just to give you a quick shot, while I was in Delhi while teaching at the Vasant School for about 9 years. Every evening I would go to work in Tihar jail with the prisoners there, from children from the age of 16 to 21, every day from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the evening. And you have no idea how much I learned from them. And when I used to come back, I used to be really excited to go back, to take back with me stories to tell them, ideas to talk about, books. I ran the library there, books for them to read. So from all walks of life, you said, you meet people, and they're there for you to learn from, to and the word that you use, empathize, and that is obviously a big word with you. It was there in your video, and that when you the way you put it across, your superpower of empathy. I just wish more and more and more people pick up that superpower that you've talked about, and then you learn from them, and the otherness that you talked about. There is so much. I'm completely dyslexic, so when I was growing up, that word dyslexia wasn't there. I just thought this was how everybody behaved, and it's only much later that I realized that I still can't spell too well. I find it difficult to see my left from my right, but it doesn't come in the way. It's just something that makes me who I am. And you're meeting people along the way, learning from them, and being able to see that in every single one, there is something so amazing. And but there's also, nobody's perfect. All of us have many kind of differences, as you put it, right? All of us are different. And that's what makes us unique and makes us who we are. So if you look out and use your superpower, right, when you're meeting and talking to other people, and if you go out and look for the good things in other people, there is so much to see. I mean, you want to go out and look for the bad things, there's so much to see there also. But therefore, it's only up to you what you want to do and who you are and what you want to see and what you want to learn from others. So I think this question of yours, this statement of yours, is very powerful. And I want through this tell your viewers, hey, listen, pick up this superpower. And it's not difficult. And then we will learn from you how to make sure that all of us uh, get hold of this superpower that you've talked about so beautifully.
My parents have actually told me you can either see a glass as half full or half empty. If you see it as half full, you have very negative out a negative output in life, and if you think negatively, you attract negative things. You're sending out vibes into the universe. However, if you look at it as half full, sorry, I messed it up. However, if you see it as half full,
Okay, so yeah.
yeah.
Go on. You were saying if you
If
see
you
it
look
as
at it as half empty, you're looking at it negatively. And if you see it as half full, you can actually attract positive vibes instead of negative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It really depends on you, what you want out of life, right? And what you want to see. And also, I think it also helps you put yourself in a situation where you allow other people to see in you what you want them to see, because all of us are full of good and bad and maybe and yes and no and black and white and gray and huge blue colors like the one behind you at the moment. So, and we're not, we're not the same 24 hours, 7 days a week. We have moods, we have situations we have to deal with, issues that we have to deal with, and we are frustrated. And if people meet us only when we are frustrated and they take away that impression of us, right? When we are not at our best, and if that's the only one they've got, well, that, that's also us, right? It's not that that's not us, because if they've seen a side of us, then it is a side of us. But how often are you able to see or show or share or learn from the others about all the sides that make up you, who you are? Because that's what it is. This whole palette of colors that makes us, we are all colorful beings. Which color you allow to dominate at which point is also sometimes in our control. And we have to accept the fact that sometimes it is not in our control. So we should not be upset with ourselves if we are not always able to always show the best side of us. As long as we know that there is a huge good side, not only in us, but in others. And then what happens is that when you realize that somebody has seen you not at your best, that would allow you to figure out that sometimes when somebody you have seen who's not coming across as somebody wonderful, you have to then allow, maybe I didn't see her at her best, right? And that will then help us be able to get more positivity or more reality out of life. I don't know whether that makes sense to you, but I just reacted to what you were saying, because what you said was very powerful also.
It does make sense. And I agree completely with you. So, before I ask you my next question, I'd just like to thank you for having gone through my audiobook, Extraordinaire, and I do hope you enjoyed it. In my eponymous poem, Extraordinaire, and several others, I've dwelt on how empathy is a superpower the world needs most today, and how kindness is a panacea for many problems we face today. You, Mr. Kapoor, are a celebrated leader in the field of education, associated for several years with Vasant School. And ages before the words diversity, equity, and even inclusion became fashionable, you set up an institution that is head and shoulders above others by way of being an integrated school. And I personally believe that that would not have been possible if empathy and its twin kindness were not other underlying tenets of your philosophy as well. Do you agree with this statement? What do you feel should be done by way of supporting those with mental health issues that were further exacerbated by the pandemic in this generation of youngsters?
Okay, so first let me just clarify something about the setting up of Personne School. Don't forget, like you're saying, um, that this whole effort was nothing to do with me, right? It was a whole bunch of us, right? And it was just amazing that the kind of teachers that we had that came to Personne School. We started off with 16, and now there are about 170. And don't forget that we also had some very enlightened leadership in the form of Mr. and Mrs. Puri, who had very much part of the visioning exercise. And so we worked together, all of us, the teachers, the parents that came in the first few years, the students, the Puris, all of us worked together. And I think what we must keep in mind, that what you're just talking about, mental health issues, which might have been exasperated by the pandemic and people being cut off from society and what was called the norm. The problem with the word norm or normal is another problem that we have to kind of grapple with. And what is normal, and is all of us normal all the time? we are always deviating from these things. And like what you said, that this whole issue of um, mental health, right, has to be addressed as much as physical health or social health or emotional health or spiritual health or cerebral health. All these healths work together, right, to make you the kind and the best version of yourself, the phrase that you had used earlier also. So what has happened is that for a long time in society, when somebody was deviating from what was the society's pre-judgmental idea of what is normal, right? So anybody who went away from that and you couldn't deal with it because you didn't understand it, you didn't want to talk about it. Now it is up there. You need to talk about it. And you don't need to talk about it only, but you need to, like what you said, empathize, because all of us, there is not a single human being on this planet who does not have some mental health issues. You might be sad at some point in time, might be happy, you might be depressed, you might be going through a whole bunch of other developmental issues that you go through. So also, I think what is becoming more and more uh, evident, and this is something that we started talking about at Vasant School long time ago, that all of us, every single human being is on a spectrum of some sort, right? Somebody's on one side and somebody's on the other side, and we keep traveling on this spectrum through our lives, right? So sometimes now this phrase of mental health has come about and it's on the table. Thank God, at least now it's on the table, right? So you can talk about it, right? So we've had lots of people um, who, when they talked about the issues that they had at some point of time, uh, nobody listened. But then you had some celebrities talk about their mental health issues, about their depression, and about other aspects. Then slowly, it's becoming now okay to talk about this. We at Vasant School had started talking about it a long time ago. We might not have used that term, but I find it strange that it is strange that we need to find it strange to talk about mental health, right? That is what it is. All of us have an issue with it. If you have a cold, are you embarrassed about it? No, you're not. You have something else. You have somebody. Supposing you're taller than somebody else or shorter than somebody else, are you embarrassed with it? No, you're not. Your hair is shoulder length because you decided not to grow it and cut it or change. You had a choice. Same way in the way what clothes are you wearing, uh, what makes you seen by others. These are also choices that you take to. So this is what I'm going to show about my hair. Not only am I comfortable with it, but I'm also comfortable to other people to see this is the length of my hair that I would like you to see. It's a give and take on both sides. So, in the same way with the mental health, what is wrong with being able to say, hey, listen, I'm going through a bad time today, right? Or I need some help, right? And who do you get help from then becomes the next situation in my mind, right? A lot of it, if I'm comfortable saying that I have an issue that I want to deal with, unless we ourselves accept the fact that it's all right to be able to acknowledge that we have a mental health, first of all, that mental health as a issue all of us have. We are doing well in some days we're not doing well, sometimes the help required is for longer. So I'm very happy. Okay, COVID made it a little more evident to everybody that all of us have been through isolation, have been cut off from the world. A lot of people have seen their support system being removed. But what has happened for me in that understanding is that a lot of that support system that we took for granted before the COVID, we suddenly realized when it went away, we realized, oh my God, I don't have my support. So at least you acknowledge that it was a support system. The second thing is, I think it has also made it very clear that none of us can exist in isolation. the community that we come from is so, so, so important, right? And therefore, education, and I'm using the word education as opposed to schooling. I find that they're two very different things, education and schooling. Schooling has become an end in itself, while education is much, much better. The word education itself means to bring out the best from inside you. So we realize now that in education, you becoming better by yourself is not so great, right? If you're not taking the community along with you, more importantly, if you're not allowing the community to take you along with them. And that's why conversations like this expand the community, expand people understanding that, hey, listen, we all have to work together. And all of us bring many different things to this move forward. So somebody brings an understanding of poetry, like you do. Somebody brings an understanding of some kind of food, like I think I might have something to add about cooking and recipes. Everybody, all of us. And the phrase that we use very often is that education must make you a constructive, contributory citizen to your community. Nothing else. That is the crucial thing that we need to do. And I think that is COVID has made sure that all of us understand that whether we are inside or outside, we have to be constructive, contributory citizens of our community. I hope that makes a little bit of sense to you.
It does, it does. It makes complete sense. I personally believe that there is no way that the many problems we face today can be solved if we don't approach them with a little bit of empathy and a little bit of kindness. Like you said previously, everybody has their good days and bad days, but it's our own personal choice to whether to look at it in a negative manner or a positive manner, whether we choose to try to understand them or we just pretend that they're just a bad person overall.
The word you used just now, pretend, I mean, that is such a powerful word. So we have to accept the fact that very often we are pretending. But sometimes we must also accept that sometimes pretending is the medicine for some time, right? And that also we must not say that nobody will pretend at any point of time. That's just also another coping mechanism that all of us have.
I completely agree with you. My last question for the day is if you could just share some parting pearls of wisdom with our listeners on how we can make this world a kinder and more inclusive place to live in.
That's a, this whole thing about, um, let's use the word that you use, share. That's what we were talking about, share some, that's it. If you can understand the concept of sharing, that's it. Because we cannot, nobody can carry the burden themselves. So it's not only sharing other people's burdens or problems or issues or joys or sadness, but also allowing other people to share your joys and your sadness and your issues, right? Once we get to understand that it's not good enough to be kind to others, right? Kindness is very important. But very often, you can only be kind to those people who allow you to be kind to them, right? Because not everybody is open to kindness. And if you accept that, then you yourself, me, myself, have to first open myself to allow other people to be kind to me, right? I think that is the most important thing that we have to understand. That if we want the um, the good feeling, the joy of being part of a community, then you must be equally open to receive as much as you want to give. One doesn't happen without the other. So even in this conversation, I have read your book, I've read your poems, I've talked about your superpower, I've learned a lot. I've shared with you some of my uh, thoughts, my life. but sharing, both of us. And that is, if you're wanting me to say something to your viewers, hey, to your viewers, all of them, just do be open to receive as much as you want other people to be open to receive from you. I think that is what I would like to say.
I loved your response, Mr. Kapoor, and I can tell you that I learned so much through interacting with you today. Your insightful as well as thought provoking responses are food for thought for all of our listeners, young and old, and will definitely help us all internalize how we can make this world a kinder and more humane place.
And yes, and we must understand that we are very much part of that kinder and humane world and universe that we live in. Thank you for this opportunity and for being who you are. And that's what I would say to you. Hey, listen, just continue being who you are, grow your wings, and help us fly along with you.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been a pleasure interviewing you.
Thank you. Good talking to you. I'm sure we'll be in touch.